Breaking news, a brand new forecast just in moments ago for Hurricane Milton, which is heading right towards Florida as an extremely dangerous Category 5 hurricane. Today, Milton became the strongest storm anywhere on the planet this year. Meteorologist Chad Myers is in CNN's hurricane headquarters. Chad, where is Milton set to make landfall, and what is your best assessment as to when?
You know, the models are really in very good agreement, and it's very, very close to what we would call the clear water area, anywhere from just north, let's call it, I don't want to call it Dunedin, but Pinellas County, maybe as far south as Anna Maria Island. But here's what happened at this hour. The 5 o'clock advisory is now in up to 180 miles per hour. Now, there is a Hurricane Hunter aircraft on the way to make sure, but it was 175 when they last left, and the storm hasn't lost any intensity. And in fact, it's forecast, Jake, to get to 185 after midnight tonight, and then make landfall either as a Category 4 or a Category 3 very close to Tampa. When Helene hit the area, I know it went north of there, but the surge in Tampa Bay was 6 to 7 feet. The forecast surge in Tampa itself is now 10 to 15 feet. So I talked to a guy today who said, hey, man, I had 6 feet of water in my house. And I went, ugh, that's not good, because 6 is now going to be 10 or 15. So that house may not be there anymore. Dude, this is really, really a deadly storm that people are going to need to get away. If your local county emergency manager says you need to evacuate, now is the time. Unlike the storm that kind of, Ian, that kind of turned into Fort Myers, we have time this time. You have time to find some place to shelter. And it is going to be one, obviously for the record books, but we've never had a stronger storm, obviously, in the Gulf of Mexico in the past couple of decades. The last storm that made landfall close to Tampa was 102 years ago. The last major hurricane, didn't have a name, but that was 1921. This is a devastating event. People need to take precautions. You need to tell your relatives, hey, Uncle Joe, you need to get out of there. They told you to leave. It's time. You have to go somewhere. You don't have to go to North Carolina. You have to go somewhere away from that surge, away from that water, Jake.
All right, Chad Myers, thank you so much.
The race to get ready comes as many areas in the storm's path are still reeling from Hurricane Helene. CNN's Brian Todd is on the story.
In Pinellas Park, Florida, just across the bay from Tampa, residents use large pails to fill as many sandbags as they can. Hurricane Milton, which has already exploded into a Category 5 storm, could hit the Tampa Bay area directly. It would be the first major hurricane to strike within 50 miles of Tampa in more than 100 years. Some residents in at least 6 counties told to evacuate. In Hillsborough County, the evacuation order is mandatory in some places. That means authorities cannot force people from their homes, but
if you remain there, you could die. My men and women could die trying to rescue you.
What makes this especially dangerous in places like Tampa and Fort Myers is that those cities are still recovering from Hurricane Helene, which has killed more than 230 people in 6 states, with the death toll still rising. For those in the mandatory evacuation zones who decide to stay put, Florida officials have a dire warning.
You probably need to write your name and permanent marker on your arm so that people know who you are when they get to you afterwards. And we are still seeing, as we're uncovering folks on the beach who thought they could stay there, and the storm surge got them.
With Milton forecast to make landfall late Wednesday, Governor Ron DeSantis warns the window for evacuation is closing fast.
You have time to execute your plan, but you got to do it now. Time is going to start running out very, very soon.
Helene made landfall as a Category 4 hurricane that caused widespread damage, leaving tons of debris that still hasn't been cleared. Debris that residents worry could still harm people if it starts flying around when Milton hits.
The debris on the beach and whatever's going on is a little cause for concern, because there is not enough time and not enough manpower to take everything and put it where it needs to be off the island.
The international airports in Tampa and Orlando closing ahead of the storm. Tolls are being suspended on major highways throughout western and central Florida to help those evacuating. Governor DeSantis says the assets that Florida lent to North Carolina for Hurricane Helene have had to be brought back to Florida. But North Carolina is still dealing with the horrific aftermath of Helene. More than 100,000 customers are still without power there. And around Asheville, dozens of people are still missing a week and a half after Helene tore through the area.
We're still working to reach communities. We still have search and rescue occurring as we speak.
And we have this information and video just into CNN. Hurricane Hunters has posted their latest video on X. This is video from the plane, the Hurricane Hunter, flying through the eye of Hurricane Milton as it approaches the west coast of Florida. You can see the clouds swirling there. This is, of course, these Hurricane Hunter planes gather critical information. They're going to be gathering critical information in the next 48 hours before the storm makes landfall on the west coast of Florida. This is information that is going to be very critical in informing us as to when and where this is going to hit Wolf. This video we're seeing for the first time, and the Hurricane Center says those pilots even spotted birds within the eye of the hurricane.
Vice President Harris is speaking now about Hurricane Milton, and she departs for New York. Let's listen in.
I know a lot of folks out there have survived these hurricanes before. This one is going to be very, very serious. And I urge you to please just grab whatever you need. Listen to the orders you're getting from your local officials. They know what they're telling you, and they know what Milton is about to be. So please do that. The other point I'd make is that there's a lot of mis and disinformation being pushed out there by the former president about what is available, in particular to the survivors of Helene. And first of all, it's extraordinarily irresponsible. It's about him. It's not about you. And the reality is that FEMA has so many resources that are available to folks who desperately need them now, and resources that are about helping people get back on their feet and rebuild and have places to go. You are entitled to these resources. People are entitled to these resources, and it is critically important that people apply for the help that is there to support. That all of those resources were created for just these kinds of moments in an emergency situation, knowing that folks are entitled to have the relief that they so rightly need at this moment in time. So listen to your sheriffs around the places that have been impacted by Helene. Listen to your local sheriff, who's going to tell you straight about what's available to you and how, for so many reasons and ways, there are no conditions attached to the relief that's available to you.
Madam President, Governor DeSantis, NBC is reporting Governor DeSantis is ignoring your calls on hurricanes, resources, and help. How does that hurt the situation here?
You know, moments of crisis, if nothing else, should really be the moment that anyone who calls themselves a leader says they're going to put politics aside and put the people first. People are in desperate need of support right now, and playing political games with this moment in these crisis situations, these are the height of emergency situations, is just utterly irresponsible, and it is selfish, and it is about political gamesmanship instead of doing the job that you took an oath to do, which is to put the people first.
Madam Vice President, Milton's arrival, what does it mean for resources?
All right, Vice President Harris speaking on the tarmac at Joint Base Andrews in Maryland. Back with our breaking news about Hurricane Milton, the strongest storm on the planet this year. It appears to be right now headed towards Florida's heavily populated west coast. And Milton is threatening to be the storm that meteorologists have been fearing for decades. I want to bring in Deanne Criswell. She's the administrator of FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, which has been working around the clock to try to help victims of the last hurricane. Helene. Deanne, thanks for joining us, Administrator Criswell. So first Hurricane Helene, now Milton. How is FEMA preparing for another potentially catastrophic storm, and do you have enough funds?
Yeah, Hurricane Milton is certainly going to be a historic event here in Florida. As we continue the initial response and recovery from Hurricane Helene, we do have staff on the ground that are prepared to pivot and help support this response. But we're moving more resources in. We're moving additional search and rescue resources in. We're moving health assessment teams in. We're moving the Army Corps of Engineers in. We're also moving management teams. And I'm here in Tampa right now, and I have a team embedded with the mayor's team so we can have that open line of communication to quickly employ people as soon as they're needed.
What do Floridians in the storm's path on the western coast of Florida need to know right now?
They need to get out. They absolutely need to listen to their local officials and evacuate. I was just with the police chief, the fire chief, and the mayor. They need to be leaving now if they're in one of the evacuation zones that they've designated. People should not focus just on the cone. They need to focus on the storm surge that is going to cover a wider area, and they need to get to safety. And this doesn't mean you have to go far. You just need to get to higher ground outside of that surge threat until the storm passes.
There were a lot of remote areas extremely hard to get to that were hit by Helene, particularly in the mountainous one-road areas of western North Carolina. Have you and authorities, FEMA, North Carolina, have you reached all of the areas affected?
So we are in the communities across Western North Carolina. I have been with Governor Cooper for the last week and understanding and talking to the local officials about where their needs are, which is why we've surged in more resources. And they are going from the pods to people's doorsteps to make sure that they have the food and supplies. We are going to continue, Jake, to have that level of presence and sustain that operation, because we also know that they're going to be a long time before the water and the power is restored. We're going to have to continue bringing these resources in to everybody that's been impacted, especially in these more remote areas that have limited access.
But have all of the remote areas been reached?
At this point, we have teams that are in every county that has been impacted. We've been working with the state to make sure we have not missed anybody. As I was with Governor Cooper this morning, we're getting positive news about progress being made. But we don't want to stop. We do want to make sure we have reached everybody. And so we're tracking that, and we're going to make sure that we continue to support the governor as long as he's needed.
I want to address the many rumors surrounding FEMA and the response to the storm. Former President Trump claimed FEMA has been running out of funds because the Biden administration diverted those funds to, quote, illegal migrants coming into the country. That's not true. Another one is that FEMA is only giving out $750 to each family. That's the extent of what American families are going to get, even while foreign aid goes to places like Lebanon and Ukraine. What's your response to these rumors, these attacks?
Yeah. Well, Jake, I'm glad that you brought it up because, one, it's just categorically false. We have been there supporting Governor Cooper and everybody across Western North Carolina. We had teams on the ground before the storm made landfall in Western North Carolina, and we are continuing to support. Our funding has not been impacted by any of those other needs across, the federal government. It's dedicated to us, and I can assure you that no funding has been taken from the disaster relief fund.
FEMA Administrator Deanne Criswell, thank you so much. Best of luck to you.
Mike Boylan now, veteran storm chaser, runs the popular hurricane tracking website Mike's Weather Page, more than 1 million followers, and he joins me now from Clearwater, Tampa area, Florida. And Mike, I know your audio is good. Even if we lose your shot, I want viewers to know we can hear you. So I know you're surrounded by debris now from Hurricane Helene. You've got Milton coming, winds topping 180 miles an hour, even if it strikes at slightly weaker speeds than that. What stands out to you right now the most about a storm that has strengthened from a tropical storm to 180 miles an hour in a day?
Yeah, it's unprecedented. I mean, it's record-setting. Pressure is under 900 millibar now. It should be pretty. Stands out for me is the direction coming west to east. That's very rare. And hitting almost the same spot that was just less than 2 weeks ago. And, my hometown here in Oldsmar, every street is lined up. And we just lost darkness, but it's like a war zone. And street after street after street is just everything. They're going to get double the surge that they got with Helene. And
Mike, I'm having a little trouble hearing you. I'm going to ask another question. I'll see if I can hear you answer. So if I interrupt you, it's because I can't fully hear you. But, how much of what we're seeing from what you see living there and having gone through so many storms in your lifetime and professionally, how much of this is just a terrible storm, unprecedented in some ways? How much of it do you believe is directly related to climate change?
specialty, but I do know the water temperatures is
And
everything. I mean, these water temperatures are some of the hottest we've seen in over 10, 15 years. Below the surface water temperatures, ocean heat content, that's a big part of the fuel for hurricanes. And that is one of the major reasons. It's like every year we're getting more and more storms in the Gulf of Mexico, and they just explosive. We saw last year, I was on your show with Lee. Luckily, that one didn't affect anybody, but the power that these things can go Category 5 is definitely part of this warm water that we're seeing.
Mike, I'm going to thank you here because I'm having trouble hearing you. I think I got the main part about what you said. This is the warmest temperatures that you've seen in 15 years and deep down below the water as well. But thank you very much. Looking at that incredibly small eye, giving this storm such incredible power from the center, 180 miles an hour right now for sustained wind.
Just got word that President Biden and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis spoke tonight about the preparations for Hurricane Milton. It's now packing sustained winds of 180 miles an hour with higher gusts and expected to hit Florida's west coast, possibly in the Tampa area. Officials are warning people not to take this one lightly. Milton is the strongest hurricane in the Gulf in nearly 20 years, the strongest storm so far this year anywhere on the planet. Making matters even more ominous, the storm is expected to hit an area still cleaning up from Hurricane Helene nearly 2 weeks ago. Joining us now is Sheila Alocasano, who lives in Longboat Key, Florida, Barrier Island near Sarasota. Her community was hard hit during Helene. Thank you so much for being with us. First of all, what's it been like trying to recover from Helene and now having to deal with this?
Helene was, it was a nightmare. I stayed, and nobody had any idea of the surge that we were going to encounter. And the whole island, all the islands around us have struggled. The damage was terrible. Up and down Anna Maria, Longboat, Siesta, Lido. It's been unbelievable.
Yeah, we're looking at some of your video, which I think is from a resort there. I mean, it just looks awful. And the storm surge for Milton is expected to be, I think, like twice as big.
I can't imagine it.
Are you going to get out?
I will be out of here by noon tomorrow. That's the deadline. It's not going to be easy to leave, but I am leaving.
And do you know, I mean, are all your neighbors going to do the same?
Yes, this is the first storm that I can't find anybody that's staying, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Everybody is taking this very seriously. You saw the destruction the way you see it in the videos that we're facing every day right now. You just can't even imagine staying. Most places are just shells of themselves. People have been working really hard cleaning their places out, and the debris that's all up and down the island, all the islands, is just unimaginable.
What's the recovery been like? I mean, do you hear from authorities? Do you have resources available to you?
Oh my goodness, Longboat has been just outstanding. They've been giving away water and mop buckets and tarps, and different businesses are doing lunches for people, and it's a wonderful small town community, and it's the same for all the barrier islands. Everybody comes together. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. And I didn't give you the video, but the sand dunes that are up and down the main thoroughfares of all these communities, the sand dunes are higher, 6, 8 feet, 10 feet high.
You know, I can hear just the emotion in your voice and how difficult this is. Is that both based on what you've seen already and just the idea of leaving again?
Well, I've never been to the point where I'm literally looking at every item in our home and deciding, do I take it or do I leave it? And the thought of it just floating in the water somewhere, it's really hard to bear.
How much, I mean, have you decided what to take? I mean, obviously I photographs, things like that, but I mean, making those choices,
yes. I'm taking my clothes and my pickleball paddle.
Well, I appreciate you talking to us. I'm so sorry for what you're going through, and I wish you the best, and we'll continue to check in with you as this thing
Thank you
develops.
so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for getting out there. There's just, after this, so many communities are going to be in such need.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine what 48 hours is going to bring.
Yeah. Well, we wish you the best, and we'll check in with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
As we mentioned earlier, a whole lot of people are getting out of harm's way and evacuating Florida's west coast as you see plenty of traffic on the interstate around Tampa. Joining us right now is Chief Barbara Tripp at Tampa's Fire Rescue. Chief, I appreciate your time. I know how busy you are. You're still dealing with stuff from Helene. How much more dangerous does that make the threat of Hurricane Milton now?
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having us. And it's actually definitely a threat with this magnitude of this storm. The Tampa Bay area is definitely going to feel Hurricane Milton. We are just trying to get over as far as to clean up with a lot of the debris and a lot of devastation that a lot of families held. And we're still in the cleanup process. And with this storm and with all of the wind and the damage, we're just trying to make it as safe as possible for the community to be able to deal with Milton.
How are evacuation efforts going? What are you most concerned about right now?
I can say the evacuation is going, I hate to say going great, but which is good because law enforcement is going door to door in a lot of the evacuation areas, which evacuation A and B has been declared by the county, and we adhere to those ordinances as well. So with that being said, the interstates, of course, is definitely packed with everyone heading, east or north, and it's been great. People are definitely listening this time. That was one of the biggest concerns because when we evacuated with Hurricane Helene, a lot of the residents did not leave their residence, and then we had to do a lot of rescue those residents, which put our first responders in danger.
So you feel like most people are heeding this. What is your message to the people at Tampa tonight?
My message to the people of Tampa is to continue to heed to the local instructions and laws as far as have many shelters that are open, and we're welcoming all families, friends, pets to come to a safe haven place. We know materialistic stuff, some things can be replaced and some things can't, but most important, your life cannot be replaced. And you can't challenge yourself with Mother Nature because she definitely will always win. So we want everyone to definitely, hide from the winds and run from the rain. And of course, with this particular storm here, we're expected to have a lot of rain and wind, which is going to be very damaging to the city of Tampa.
Chief Barbara Tripp, Tampa's Fire Rescue. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.